See what I'm saying? Hello, hello, hello. It's nice to see you, Tim. If people, don't worry, when people often enter during the call and I'll let them in, you will not even see it. Um, Everyone, I have got, how do I say your surname, Todd?
It's Menesses.
Menesses. Okay. I have the brilliant, everyone's favorite, Todd Menesses here. You are, and I'll tell you why. Because when we first started narrating, you were one of the old school Cup of Joe people. I think you
Mhm.
even went on that, like when we first did, remember before it became a thing, when we first did the prep for speed dating kind of thing?
Right?
I'm
Yes.
not saying we were the first ones to do it, but but even back then, you were one of the people that was there. And the thing about it, Todd, is you're always kind. And that
Well,
goes a long way in any business. You're always kind, and we always remember you because of that kindness.
I appreciate that. I don't think it. I've always lived by the rule: it doesn't hurt to be kind. It's no cost to you. It's no cost to me. So just be kind. I never understood why people who think that they have to be either angry or like they're in charge of everything all the time. It's like, we're all human. Just be kind to each other. If the whole world did that, I think we'd be in a better place.
Exactly. And it serves you well. It serves you well.
Thanks.
You are a gentleman through and through, and you're a brilliant narrator. And I'm fascinated by your background. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm also fascinated by the radio thing because you know how we all have our other lives that we kind of, if we had done that, we wished. And when I was young, I always like, we all grew up in the time of like Frasier and listening to the late night radio. And I want to hear 10-year-old Todd. Who was he? What was he thinking? What was he doing? Life dreams or living in the moment? Tell me about Todd.
10-year-old Todd just started collecting comic books, as you can see by all the stuff behind me.
Already
And
when you were that young, you did. What was the first
okay,
thing that
no,
sparked your interest in the comic books? Do you remember
uh,
the first time that you were like, wow?
I don't remember. To be honest, I really don't remember. I remember picking up a couple here and there, or like and being sick, and my aunt bringing me some and stuff like that. But it wasn't like I was collecting them or following along with the stories.
Yeah.
Uh, Comic books are basically soap operas for kids and now for adults. It's because the story always continues and goes on, and you want to find out what happens. It's very rare they have what's called a one-off, where the whole story is contained in the one book. So I think some of those I heard early on were one-offs. So it was just, the story ended, so it was no big deal.
Right.
And somewhere I came across a story that, and I think I told this online to a Facebook group of comic book guys. Um, I came across an Avengers that was given to me by someone, and it ended with a cliffhanger, and it was a massive cliffhanger. The bad guy is just pretty much beat all the Avengers, and all of a sudden Thor shows up and throws his hammer, and the hammer's heading towards the guy, and it ends right there.
Were you 10 years old still around this time
Yes.
or older? Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I think a buddy in school gave it to me or something like that. So anyway, and it was his brothers. Here's the thing: it was his older brothers that he gave to him, and then he finished reading it, so he gave it to me.
Okay.
Well, the book was already 2 to 3 years old, so there was no way I was going down to the newsstand to buy the next issue to find out what happened. And
And there was no internet those
there was
days.
no
You
internet back then. There really wasn't any comic book stores
couldn't
back
just like
then.
pick up your
They were
phone
few
and
and
check
far
it
between.
out.
So fast forward, so that kind of got me. So I did go to the stand and I picked up the latest event, and so that's what got me started. Okay, because I wanted to see what happened, but I couldn't find it. Fast forward, several years, because I'm in high school. I think I'm a senior in high school, and I find there's a bookstore on Magazine Street in New Orleans, which if anyone's been to New Orleans knows what Magazine Street is. It's one of the big shopping areas downtown that sold comics. It was a Magazine Street bookstore, but it had a huge comic thing, and that was the other side of it. Well, he had a whole selection of comics that were you could sit through, and I would go there on a Saturday and just sit through all day and just sort through all these comics. There were 3 for $1, and they were just his old issues, whatever.
Oh, wow. And would you just
Found
like
the
buy
continu
3 every Saturday?
I would buy several. I mean, I was already in high school and working and had money. But one Saturday, I came across the continuation to that book that I hadn't had years ago, and I bought it, and I still have both of them right now. And they're one of my favorite stories ever. So,
And what was the answer to the cliffhanger? Who did it?
the answer to the cliffhanger was obviously they defeated the villain, but he's started out not looking that good. Thor threw the hammer at him, and he actually caught the hammer, which was surprising. So yeah, it was I can go into the whole story and tell you about it, but that'll take up too much time.
Okay, so comic books. So what were you thinking? Were you thinking, oh, someday I'd like to create these, or just be a
Um,
superhero, or
I I dabbled in drawing comics. I could probably show you some of my artwork from back then. I never took art class. I just freehand artist, and a lot of them, I thought about being a comic book artist. Never went anywhere with that. From the time I was younger, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. That's what I wanted to be.
oh, I love that.
And and because I loved animals, dogs always loved me. I could go to somebody's house, oh, my dog's mean, and the dog would come up to me and lick me and be, nice and whatever.
Oh,
So that's always what I wanted to be. So when I went to college at LSU, I started out in pre-veterinary medicine, and I did it for the first 2 years I was there, and I did most of my sciences, did well, lab, so forth. I'm horrible in math. I'm atrocious in math. So I got to the point where all I had left to take pretty much was math for the next semester. It was like I would be taking math forever because I
because you kept
avoided
putting off the
everything.
math
I
classes
kept
and
putting it off the math classes and taking the sciences. So my counselor said, and I was like, I really don't want to. And about that time, a buddy came and said he was going to go try out to be a DJ at the college radio station. He didn't want to go by himself. Would I go with him? Sure, I went. He tried out, and the guy looked at me and said, "Hey, you want to try out?" I said, "Sure, why not?" I get hired, he doesn't. And
are you
so
guys
I go
still
back.
friends?
Oh yeah, we're still friends.
Okay.
He went on to be a lawyer. What are you talking about? He's doing.
Okay.
So anyway, I go back and I pull out the syllabus and I look at it, and it's like, there's no math needed for this course for broadcast journalism. There is no all I need is basic math, which I'd already taken. There's no more math. So I switched my major over and went into broadcast journalism.
What did your parents think of that switch?
Uh, they didn't care as long as I was happy.
That's
And I
cool.
found out what's funny is you talk about going back. My father always wanted to be a disc jockey. I never told anybody.
Oh, wow.
And I actually found this is dating again, cassette tapes that he still had that I had made when I was 8 or 9, pretending I was a DJ on the radio. Don't ask me. I don't even remember doing it, but he pulled them out and played them for me. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So apparently at some point I always wanted to be on the radio. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so this all kind of feels like kismet here. So, okay, so you finish the thing in broadcast journalism, and then what do? Go pound the pavement for a job?
I actually got a job right away. Right out of school. I was still in school, and I started working at an oldies radio station in Baton Rouge.
That's so
And
cool.
this is in the 80s, so the oldies are the 50s and the 60s back then.
That they
And
aren't still?
no,
Wh-
unfortunately, everything has moved forward. Now 80s and 70s
Oh,
are
don't
considered.
tell me that.
Oh yes.
No, no, no.
It's horrible to listen to classic rock now, and they're playing stuff that it's like, wait a minute, that's not classic rock. You know, yes, it is. In Excess isn't classic rock. What are you talking
Oh
about?
my God.
So anyhow, and the thing was, I knew all that music because going back to my father, growing up, he had an enormous record collection, album collection. He loved music and he had every form of music. And so I grew up listening to all of these songs from the 50s and 60s because that's when he was a teenager in the 50s. So I knew all the songs because I'd heard them all my life. So the PD was pretty impressed with that. And so I went from that, and the next thing was country. And the funny thing is, going into music, I always said, I'm not going to work in oldies and I'm not going to work in country. I just want to do rock and pop. First two jobs, oldies, and I ended up in country music for almost 12 years. And it was I ended up being one of
I've
the
learned not to
biggest
say things
country.
out loud to like
Yeah.
bait the universe, because that's how you end up with the book that you never would have touched your whole life. The
Right.
minute you say it out loud, you're going to get that book.
Well, I know that now. I ended up being one of the top country DJs for 12 years. So it was good. Had a lot of fun with it.
Were there
Met a lot of
perks
people.
like glamorous parties and people wanting your autograph perks?
Not wanting my autograph so much, but there is, we did a lot of meet and greets. I met a lot of country artists. I met a lot of rock artists, a lot of country artists. And the country artists are just down to earth. I mean, there wasn't any that I met was not nice and didn't take time with their fans or whatnot. And I got invited to a couple of things. You know, back then they used to do they had the whole payola thing. I don't know if you've heard about that back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And basically, it was a big scandal in radio. If you ever look back at the top 40 charts and you see songs like from the 50s, 60s, early 70s, they're like, how the heck did that become a number one hit? Because it's a horrible song or it's a goofy
Oh,
song. That was payola. The record companies were paying DJs to play these records under the table. And so the charts were based on what was being played and what was being sold. And if you kept playing it, people bought it. So it was a big scandal here in America, and the federal government cracked down on it. So you couldn't do any more payola. So the record companies got around it by giving us gifts. And they would do what in country radio, they would do what they called showcases. So every now and then I would get a call and they would fly me to Vegas to go see a new artist
and that's legal?
or Nashville. Not anymore. It was, and they cracked down on that. But yeah, that's the sort of things we had. One country artist, Sammy Kershaw, who I knew because when I worked in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a radio station called KMDL, I was a music director and became the program director. We moved our studios from where it originally was to a new building downtown, and he was the guy doing the construction. That's what he did on the side. And while he was there, he says, "Hey, I just cut my demo record for Mercury." I'm like, "Okay, well, when you get it, Samuel, let me know." Okay, fine. Next thing you know, he's on all the charts and he's big and famous, marries Lori Morgan at one point, and he's all over the place. But so when his album went gold, he came down and he flew me and my new wife then up to Nashville for his gold party. So
Okay, so what comes to mind is, and something Rebecca said when we were talking about the universe, and she said, focus on what you want, not what you don't want, which is like 100% true. But you
right.
remind me of Karen Cummins. And
Yeah.
the thing that I like the most about Karen, I probably haven't even mentioned this to her, but I love this. It feels to me like you're both people that you love what you love and you dive into it wholeheartedly. You just like, you follow your heart
Yeah.
to navigate your way through life. Am I close?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like giving yourself the time, because I think we all have things that we love. Like I've got so many hobbies and things that like I could be doing that I'd love. I'm like, I'll do those after I do the things that I have to do. But I envy the people that can just give themselves wholeheartedly and like in the moment. Am I right that are you good at that in the moment? You're DJing, you're 100% DJing.
Yes.
You're narrating, you're 100% narrating, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
love that. It's like people like you don't even need to meditate, do you? Because you're just like,
well, we
but
have our problems and have our bad days, just like everybody else. And you know, I'm sure Karen does as well. And yeah, I take time. I still have to step back and take time for myself, even from all of this. I mean,
yeah,
you know, radio was a business that you loved it, and one of my first early mentors in radio said, the minute you wake up in the morning and you feel like, okay, I have to go into work today, it's time to quit,
yeah,
because it shouldn't feel that way. And about 2019, right around the pandemic time, started to feel that way for me. Um, so I stepped away from it completely, with the help of the radio station telling me goodbye, and dove headfirst into narration full time.
yeah. And then that became your next love.
Yes.
Why do you think it started to feel that way for you? What do you think caused it? External events, or you just lost the
Well,
love for it?
the love for radio, or the love for, or
Doing the actual job,
the
doing
actual
the
job.
showing up to work every day and
Radio, I don't know how it is anywhere else, but in America in the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, radio has become corporate. Um, you used to have radio stations that were called mom and pop stations, where basically the guy who owned the radio station was usually the guy sitting at the end of the hallway in the general manager's office. And those stations all got gobbled up when the FCC changed rules, and they could own, one owner could own multiple stations, and everybody started building all these stations. And then the bean counters got involved and said, hey, you know, we can make money with radio, and started buying up stations. So you had people who were owning radio stations who knew nothing about radio and how it worked, and were only looking at the bottom line. So you went from uh, having a full staff to having three people do everything. And it got to where it wasn't fun anymore. I mean, it became a job. And when that happened, that's when you saw a lot of people walk away, unfortunately.
so do you have, because you need to be protective of
Hmm.
being able to show up in the moment and hold on
Hmm.
to your joy. I consider it joy, and I have challenges with it because I'm easily distracted by the outside world and easily lose my joy. Do you find that you have routines or rituals or best practices that you've learned that keep you in the right mindset? Because this job, of all the jobs in the world, I don't know if I'm the only one, but the mindset is so crucial, being self-employed freelance artist,
Yes.
narrator, and it is hard. It's not easy. Did you have to change things, learn things in your journey? Because you've been doing this a while now. What would you
Um,
suggest?
I, yes, I started doing this part-time. And what I was doing voiceovers and commercials, and wanted to get into animation and things like that. And um, on a sidebar, became friends through the radio station with, oh goodness, I just drew a blank. What's his name? Harry Shearer, with the Simpsons and so forth. And he has a house in London. He has a house in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Um, so he got me doing the, you know, trying to get on the with the voices track, and that led to this. And he said, hey, there's something that does. Um, it was a news feed at the time. You could read the newspaper or whatever online, and somebody was telling me about, and this and that. And anyway, I found my way through that to ACX and audiobooks. And I always loved audiobooks, and I had listened to audiobooks. I still have some on cassette. I mean, that's how long I had been listening to
Yeah, me
audiobooks. And
too.
it just never clicked in my mind that I could do audiobooks. And once it did, I just dove in wholeheartedly and made that my focus. And, you know, I thank Harry Shearer for that, but for putting me on the right track. You know, he would come to the radio station, and he does all those voices, and I would do Homer Simpson, here's Mr. Burns on the radio, and we would just have fun. No, that sort of thing. But yeah, so it was a turning point to get me to investigate it, at least, because I had always thought for years, and starting out, if I had started out early on, you had to go to Los Angeles or New York or one of the big centers to do that. Now everything you can do it from home. So once I found out you could do it from home and remotely, that's when I really jumped into it.
Yeah, like weirdly, I mean, I was acting, I was doing like, even when I was in corporate jobs trying to make a living, I was still acting on the side. I was doing
Yeah.
shows at night, I was comparing, I was burlesque, I was everything. And listening to audiobooks for years and years, back when they were cassettes for years and years. And it never, ever occurred to me, not even once,
Yep.
that like a human being could actually do that as a job. Like,
I
I don't know
know.
where I thought the voices came from.
I don't either. It's like, well, it's some magical place in Los Angeles that they're putting all these together. But yeah, so I jumped in at started with the ACX thing, like many narrators do. Um,
What
got
mindset challenges did you have though? Do you not find the minute you become a freelancer that,
yeah,
in my experience, the minute you become a freelancer, you are faced full on with the flood of any amount of self-doubt or insecurity you would ever have in your entire life, because suddenly you're having to announce, I'm an audiobook narrator, I'm the boss, I'm everything. Like there's no one else getting to tell you anymore what you are. What was your
yeah.
experience with that?
Well, yeah. When I jumped in full time, I think the biggest shock to the system was you're going from 30 years of a set paycheck coming in every 2 weeks or whatever it was, and you know what the amount is, to all of a sudden it's like a vast empty canvas or a desert. You're just looking out and hearing the wind blow. And it's like, okay, when's the next paycheck coming? I don't know. I have to go out and find it.
And
So that
you're
was
waiting for that security, huh? I remember
yeah,
having a friend over sitting on the couch going, I don't understand. Where do I get the money from? But how
right,
do I know how much I'm going to make in 3 months?
exactly. And you have to learn to budget, and you have to learn things I never had to do before, because I know, I'm a little low this week, but I know I got another check coming next week that's going to be all this, and
Yeah,
it wasn't really necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but you knew, your bank account would get refilled to a certain point.
yeah.
And now it's kind of like, okay, see it start to go. I have to get more in, and I know money's coming on the way. I just got to wait for it to get in, and it's 30 days sometimes. And, it's just a little bit more of a balancing act, and getting set to that mindset, which takes a lot of doing if you're not used to it. And I know some people. I was talking to uh, oh goodness, what's her name, Shannon Marguerite, the other day, and she's been, she's never had a corporate job. She's always been in acting or whatever at some point, so she's used to this sort of thing. When
Yeah.
a lot of us that just jump into it, you start to I don't want to say panic, but it's a concern, and I think that is probably the biggest learning curve that people have to face and don't succeed because of it, or they drop back or go back, and
Because
and
you have
and
to
it's
change, you
okay.
have to become a different person.
You have to
You
become a different
think,
person.
yeah, you think it's going to be like one day your circumstance is going to change. Like it won't be a problem because you will suddenly have more security and guarantee. But really
Right.
what happens for people that hang on, don't you think, is that one day you become a person that doesn't need that much security and guarantee because the security's in you because you've proven to yourself and you had a job you loved. That's a difference because I detested that that other job so much that like I spent every penny I made trying to make myself feel better on stupid
Well,
things.
I detested it the last 10 years or so, put it that way. It got
Oh,
to where it was really, really bad.
so did you
Um,
waste money too, Todd? Tell me you did.
Probably. You don't see all these pops up here. Uh, There's more what you can't see on the camera. There's more outside.
But that's
Um,
not a waste. That's life design. That's a crucial part of the budget.
yes, it's part of my imaging and branding too.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
yes, exactly. Like
oh
faux fur.
yeah, there you
It's
go.
it's
That's yours.
it's yes. That's in the
Don't
book.
I? Every
So
time you post something about that, I always say go for it. I don't tell you not to buy it. Go
I know,
for
and
it.
I always end up returning half of it anyway because it's got to be the right pink.
But no, my job at the radio station got really well. I was at talk radio, and I was there through Hurricane Katrina, and we were the emergency station. So I was stuck in New Orleans while Katrina hit at the radio station right next to the Superdome where everything happened.
Were you scared?
And
Did you feel in
um,
danger?
I think the adrenaline was running so much we didn't.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't, it's the only time I've ever been in a high-rise building that was actually swaying, put it that way. We could feel it moving when it was hitting. But after that, um, I got more into the talk radio. I was the assistant program director, and I got more into doing the talk. And then I got moving into sports when the Saints started taking off after Drew Brees. And then I ended up doing the pregame for the Saints radio network, ended up running the Saints radio network as part of my other job. And so I started spotting for the team. That was all fun. I got to be there for the whole Drew Brees time and when the Saints were successful, New Orleans Saints. But, friends, after a while that got old and I retired from that because friends would say, oh, you're at every game. Isn't that great? You're up in the press box with the announcers and you get to see all the games. And it's like, yeah, you know what that means? I wake up every Sunday at 5 a.m. I drive down into the French Quarter to do a
Uh,
pregame show that starts at 7. Then I drive to the Superdome and I stand holding binoculars behind the announcers for the next 4 hours. And then I don't get back home till 7 o'clock at night because I got to wait for the traffic and everything to go. So I said, yeah, that's my day. So it's exciting at first, but after a while, yeah, it does become a grind,
I thought because I saw somebody, one of those people, they're like, you see your fellow narrators. I don't pay
Yeah.
much attention. I pay complete attention to my fellow narrators, but these kinds of marketing posts I don't notice so much anymore. But today I saw one, she's like, I just can't believe this is my life. I like, and immediately I had this image of like all my fellow narrators, like when it's extra hot, narrating like naked, sweating like pigs. When we're like me with a fractured knee, I narrate standing up, leaning on the booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all the jobs are glamorous from the outside and on social media.
Oh, well, you got to put your best, foot forward in social media. You got to make it look like it's really good and really fun. And I I don't tend to knock people who are trying to jump into this, but I do tell people to avoid the get rich quick schemes and those that are will sell you. I said, if there's an ad and they'll tell you that I can make you a voice actor, or you can narrate audiobooks and make 6 figures in your first year in your spare time, run away screaming, because that is not the truth of this whole industry.
I
That's
mean,
not how it
I
works.
feel bad for them, but then on the other hand, I remember starting thinking, am I gonna be able to like, because I have the attention span of a fly. Am I going to be able to like do this job? And but then you'd have to pry my cold dead hands out of
Mhm.
that booth to get me to stop now. So those ones, it's like you're either going to learn really quickly, it's a steep learning curve, and you're going to stick to it through the bad times, or you're not. And so to me, if you start today, I mean, when people ask to join Cup of Joe, there's almost like an apologetic thing. And I think that's because part of social media branding, we have to say, we have 6,000 books. I'm so successful. So new people see that. So they're like, I only have 5 books. I have a fellow narrator that's just knocking the socks off everyone. And he's got like 36 something books.
Mhm.
And that's a lot for what he's done. He's like working steadily, right? But he's like, I only have this, and this. It's not, is it? It's like I judge you by if you're hanging on. If you're going to hang on, you're one of my peeps,
Yeah.
right? What would you tell Todd when you started narrating? If you could talk to Todd back then as a new narrator, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
Um, Pick better books to narrate, for one. Um,
Why
don't,
did you just take whatever the
my
keto
first book,
diet?
I just took, if you look on ACX and you see, I never did nonfiction. I started out with fantasy and sci-fi, and that's what I wanted to do, in horror, and that's what I did. That's the only thing I auditioned for. I have a couple of nonfictions that were given to me by publishers, but I never really have actively pursued them. But the first book I ever did is really long and really bad, and it's if you look on ACX and you see the first book, if you go by the dates and you see the first book, and this is back in, and it makes it look like I've been doing this forever, because I think it was 2015 or 2016, because I had started doing it part-time. What no one knows is it took me almost 6 months to do that book, because I was doing it part-time, and I just was all over the place. The microphone that was not great. The room was not, I didn't have a really great treated room. I mean, it's just, when I listen to that and I listen to what I got now, and, I've got this booth, it's, the whisper room, it's all, then I got a $1,200 mic. I mean, I got all this stuff now.
That's
It sounds
good,
really
isn't
good.
it? Because can you
That's
imagine
good.
if you looked back at your first book and you were sounded the same?
Yes.
You want
Yes.
to sound better. You want to be ashamed of your first book because you
Yeah,
want to
it's a
have
process.
grown.
It's a process. Now, I do have two of the books, a couple of the books I did early on. The author has just written another sequel to one of them and contacted me, and I'm about to record it. And I told him, I said, you do realize when people listen to books 1 and 2, this is a completely different microphone and different setup. It's going to sound completely different from what this one sounds like. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. So,
But now he's getting a seasoned narrator as well,
yes, yes, yes. And he
top
knows.
level
We
performance.
became, he's an author I became friends with. I actually got to meet him at a convention and so forth. So,
Oh, I love that.
but yeah, so he's a good sci-fi writer. It's a couple of zombie books. I happened to jump into his when the whole zombie thing was popular. So, I made a good penny off of his books. So
I
I
love
don't
that. I
mind.
love the whole. So it's a very niche. I mean, because you're an expert now. Because I bet you can do all the Marvel stuff, huh? And all the it's kind of a niche set of skills to
Well,
get the tone.
I haven't been able to land one yet. I did a nonfiction book for Tantor about Marvel comics in the 70s, which was great because I got to relive when I was a kid reading all this stuff. I knew all the stories they were talking about and all hey, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah, okay, so now I know why they did that. So it was kind of really neat for me as I was reading it. But yeah, I like to do the epic fantasies. I've always liked fantasy,
The ones with all the like names
different
that don't
voices.
exist, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and you can play more in
Were
those
you a
worlds.
gamer?
Um, I was a gamer, but not an online gamer. There was no
Okay.
online when I started, back when I
Dungeons and
started playing games in
Dragons.
the 80s. I played Dungeons and Dragons once in my life. I was never a Dungeons and Dragons guy. And I think it's because the person we played it with, who was a dungeon master, was kind of lame. And it was our first time playing, and he had been experienced, and it was just really one of these really, it was kind of like, have you seen the Big Bang Theory TV show
I've seen it. I've
on
never
it?
like watched it. I think
Okay.
kind of you have to be like
It's
I've
kind of
always
like it.
wanted to be like kind of cool like that, but I've just
Yeah.
never had the attention span.
Well, you got to be a comic book nerd to really get it, and like science. But the one of the main characters, Sheldon Cooper, who's very by the book, that's kind of like this
Young
guy.
Sheldon, I love.
Yes.
Absolutely love Young Sheldon because PJ was on it.
Yeah. PJ was going to, it's kind of like being like young Sheldon being your dungeon master. That's pretty much what this guy was. So we'd had no fun playing it. So I walked away from it. It's like, this is how it is. I don't want to play this. But yeah, no, I never played that. I always liked I read science fiction. I love science fiction movies. I love fantasy. Obviously with comic books, there was always, that's a fantastic realm as well. You're dealing with a lot of science and a lot of scientific principles and things in comic books that people don't really understand. They're not written for kids.
Mm.
You know, and a lot of the funniest thing is a lot of the things that are in comic books are now slowly making their way into the real world. They're finding, you know, alternate realities and different things that people are now coming up with and things that could possibly be true, you know, from a science perspective. So, you know, it's really interesting that that kind of put all that back in my mind, and that's why I went for the epic stuff. And you know, when I was in radio in the 80s, I did I was the morning guy with one of the crew back when they used to be called the morning zoos and things like that. I was a guy that did all the voices, you know, and so I just like having fun with all that. We had, you know, had a cowboy is the oldest cowboy in the world. And he would call in and want to do a, am I wearing a hat? Wait a minute, what's going on? You know, you'd halfway
But
through
is
forget
that
you're talking
natural
about.
to you, or did you have to teach yourself to do that?
I've always been a mimic. I've always been able to mimic voices I've heard on the radio, voices I heard on TV, my friends,
Oh, I bet
teachers
they
in high
loved
school.
you.
Teachers in high school, that was always interesting. Um, and I got caught once. One of our teachers left and had to got called to the office or something. And so I went to so while we're all sitting there waiting for him to come back, so I was like, get up, go. So I got up by his desk and I started impersonating him. And you know, doing everything he did with the ruler, and he would slap and in his voice, and you know, everyone was laughing and cutting up, and then all of a sudden they all got quiet, and I kept kept going. I'm like, okay, I've lost my audience. What's going on here? And they're all quiet, and I'm doing it, and all of a sudden behind me I hear, "That's very funny, Mr. Menesses," and it was him. So take your seat. He actually laughed about it, but I didn't get in trouble. But it was still kind of jarring.
Okay, most meaningful moment ever when you were narrating, artistically, craft-wise, something you figured out, getting in the flow. Most the part of a book you completely sunk into. Most meaningful moment.
I'd have to say for me, it's when I get to narrate in first person. I love when the character is telling the story. I can get more into it that way than a third person narration. And then I can connect more to the story that way, as I put myself in the character and I can see everything that he is seeing and tell it like he would be telling it, as opposed to trying to be the third person omniscient narrator, which you know, I do in a lot of epic fantasies. And the cool thing with epic fantasy is that they can also be, your third person narrator can also still be close to the story.
Right.
Because you know, it's like you're telling this epic tale,
From their
you
point
know,
of view as
from their
well.
point of view, or
Yeah.
they know about it from eons ago or
Like
whatever.
Morgan Freeman's voice telling you a story.
Yeah, yes, like sort of like that. I'm Morgan Freeman,
I
and
always
I
think I'm
told this
Morgan
story.
Freeman.
I told the story, and Danielle saw it and thought it was very nice.
Okay.
That's
Oh my God, that's really good. Okay. Okay, I have a two-part question for you.
what.
Out of the craft realm
Mm-hmm.
into the business realm, into the
Right.
career realm, your highest moment and your lowest moment since starting as a narrator.
Hmm.
Like you got the book you couldn't believe you got, you lost the book you really wanted, that kind of thing.
Highest moment. Um, I got a book from Simon and Schuster called The Dynasty. It was a nonfiction book, first one I ever did, and it was about the New England Patriots. And I got it after the speed dating because at the time I was still working with the New Orleans Saints. So I'm pretty sure I got it because they knew I could pronounce all the players and coaches' names, which was part of it. But I really enjoyed that book. And I'm not a New England Patriots fan. This was the whole Tom Brady era and his whole story right before he left. But it was very interesting and fascinating in the background and so forth that went around. And then when you read it, you start to see, okay, now I know why that happened. Now I see the behind the scenes, what's going on there.
And you do know your audience here. When you're talking their highest moment, you could have stopped at, I got a book from Simon and Schuster. We all would have been, oh, that exciting.
Yeah, and it was because of them too. Also, let's see, another one. I guess two other highs. Penguin Random House. I got to be part of Seth Rogen's book.
Oh, that's
yearbook.
cool.
I did a segment on that, and they just recently contacted me. I guess I can say it. I don't think it's whatever, but
Wait, don't say it.
no,
Don't.
I'm pretty sure it's
I
out.
don't want to be
Coming out.
responsible if then you get in trouble, because seriously, some of them get very unhappy if we say things.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't want to get you in trouble. And then it's like, on Cup of Joe, I said this and it ended my career.
okay, I'll leave it. I'll be quiet about it. But it was just another
lowest moment. Lowest,
lowest
like,
moment.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be books. I had one guy who was told by a coach that he should just quit. And then he went to another coach, Johnny Heller, kind of saved the day, and the whole audience was in tears. So it doesn't have to be like you got a book or got, but what was the lowest moment that you had to kind of work your way out of? Yeah, Candace says we'll find out there's other good ones soon enough. It's best. I always think it's best to say less when it comes to that kind of thing, not jinx.
Okay. Let's see. The lowest. When Johnny Heller told me not to quit my day job. No, I'm just kidding. Wow. I guess my lowest would be there was a period earlier this year where I had nothing booked. I went from I started full time in 20, what year is it? 23, 2021 really was my first full-time year, for a full year, full time. And it just went book to book to book to book to book to book, publisher, everything. And I thought, okay, this is really good. I'm doing fine. January hits and you could hear a pin drop. I couldn't get a book to save my life. So I literally went to lowest point probably when I went to APAC in March. Truthfully, I couldn't afford to be there. I literally went there with barely enough money to eat.
Wow. Did you just were you like, I have to do this for my career, or?
It was part of that. It was already paid for. I'd already paid for it. I had the luck of my hotel room was already paid for ahead of time because I had booked APAC for 2019 when COVID hit and everything was canceled. So the hotel kept my credit and said, next time I'm in New York, use it. So fast forward a couple of years later, I called them and they said, sure, fine, it's great. It's still,
But
we're
how
still going
did
to
you
honor it.
feel? Were you able to just put it behind you and like get on with it? Or did you have to like
I
plaster a smile on your face? And
put it behind me. I plastered a smile on my face. I, went to everything that I had signed up for and met with everybody. But yeah, once all the festivities ended, I just went back to the hotel room and basically that was it. I would just sit on the bed and wait till the next day. So, Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. That was a pretty low point. And
Did
I
anything
actually
come
read,
of it? Did you like end up getting any books because you went to that APAC? Do you think that it had a positive?
I think it did. I got some books, and I've been somewhat steady since. But
But do you think because of APAC, or do you think you would have gotten those books anyway?
I think being at APAC helped. I really do, because it was some of the people that I talked with, and then I kept, pursuing and talking to them and letting them know what was going on, because I literally I felt at one point that maybe this is it. Maybe my career's over. Maybe I need to start going back to looking at radio again and going back into doing something else, you know.
But
And I
that's
think
the
we
other
all have.
side, Todd. Do you not find, I know that part of our job is making things look grand and wonderful and nice on social media. And nobody wants to hear a downer. I mean, nobody wants to hear, well, actually, everything kind of sucks. I mean, we don't want to hear that, right? But part of it is also showing up when things aren't pretty
Yeah,
and connecting as human beings and being honest about them not being pretty, but then not taking it too far so we become the whiner, or the
right,
aunt that we all have that shows up at all the family parties and ends up, and that Jimmy, you know what I mean, the same story they've
right,
been going on. You don't want to be her.
right.
But you showed up and you were kind of honest, and you showed up even though it wasn't the prettiest moment. I think that
Yeah.
takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it takes guts. I just know it was something I felt I had to do. And, it was going to be it was the one thing I attended this year. I knew I wouldn't be able to attend anything else. The New England narrator thing's going on right now, which I went to last year, but I didn't get to go this year.
I'm
And
thinking I might Photoshop my head on them when they all start posting those pictures, because I always miss out on that. That's the one thing I have total FOMO about. I'm so
it
jealous of it.
it's a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
a really good thing. Uh, if you can do it, do it. I'm trying to make plans now to go back next year. So
I want to
we'll
go.
see where
Maybe
we
I've
go.
already got my outfits planned. Maybe I'll meet you
Yeah, there you
someday at
go.
the narrators
There you
retreat.
go. There you
So,
go.
okay, so we've got the highs,
Hmm.
we've got the lows.
Hmm.
You're still in the game. And I love the picture. I love that picture because it's a true picture. The I had doubts. I didn't know where my money was coming from. It went up, it went down. I got great books, and then I didn't get great books, which is the way the job looks, which is, I
Yes.
think, a realistic picture of the way the job looks. And in anyone's eyes, you're a success. You're a successful narrator in all the rest of our eyes. And and I bet on some days you feel like that successful narrator, and some days you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? Everyone's saying they're missing Candace. Everyone's missing the retreat too. We're we're all the all the people with retreat
I'm the
FOMO.
consolation prize. This is the consolation prize for not going to the retreat. Thank
Well,
you very
if
much.
we, you're a good consolation prize. Okay, so piece of advice. You're talking to a room full of newbies that have just started narrating, don't know where to go, what to do, feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Do you tell them specialize? Do you tell them try everything? What's your best piece of advice for
Hmm.
newbies?
Get coaching,
Mm,
if you can. Um, don't. Okay, this is going to sound strange. Don't. How do I put this? Don't harass or be creepy about contacting narrators for advice. Um, it is a loving community, but if start out, hey, how do you do this? And I really like how you do it. And could you help me? You're going to get some advice. I will give some people advice. I give people advice all the time and help, but it's not like I have the time, or any other narrator has the time to hold your hand through it.
right.
This is very much a career where that's why they always say get coaching. And I didn't believe that my first 2, 3 years in this, because I've been in radio for 30 years. I don't need coaching, blah, 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 blah. I know how to talk into a microphone, yada, yada, yada. But it is a whole different animal. It's a completely different animal from just reading a book. If you think it's just reading a book, it's not. So one would be get coaching, and two, if you really, really love it, you have to put the time in, and you have to stick with it even through the hard times. Because who knows? There are people that are overnight successes in this business that all of a sudden take off on a book, or they're perfect for it and they're getting books left and right from publishers. There are a lot of us that I consider myself just a working narrator, like a working actor. You're working, you may not be getting the next Stephen King thriller, but you're working, and you're getting jobs, and you're
A
paying the bill.
jobbing narrator, and that's a fine thing to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think Hillary Huber said that at APAC. She said, as long as you're working, you're a working narrator. So don't compare yourself with the Scott Bricks and the Ray Porters of the world. You said, just, do what you've got to do to make it. And I guess that's probably it. I mean, don't be a pest, and ask nicely, and you'll get some advice. I mean, I know I asked a bunch of guys, and they helped me out earlier on.
And see,
It wasn't
advice,
like I
I've
asked for
had
them to hold my
people,
hand.
I mean, I think relationships kind of matter a bit, because I've
Mhm.
had people reach out and contact me. Hi, do you want to talk? Let's talk. I'm like, can I help? How can
Yeah,
I help? Is no, no,
yeah,
no, no, I just wanted to get to know you. And then it's like, well, can you introduce me to a publisher?
yeah,
But it's like, I don't know you. You're asking for my time, but there is work for you to put in the front too. Have you
right,
joined the group? Have you become my friend? Have we talked about faux fur? Are you just reaching out to step on my head to get to whatever publishers you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
nobody would begrudge helping someone, but maybe it's not all like a sales challenge, is it?
No,
It's a relationship.
and I think a lot of that, and not to knock newer narrators,
Yeah.
because if everybody can get into this, if you have the talent to do it, by all means do it. But I think it's coming from that corporate side. If you're
Yeah.
coming from a job
And
where
Instagram salespeople talking
it
about
is very,
algorithms and
yeah, it's very, it's very, I don't want to say cutthroat, but it's very, you got to watch out for yourself, and you got to get ahead. Whereas in this community, everyone's willing to help, as long as you're not an ass about it.
yeah,
If you become a jerk, then word travels that way too,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You want to be my friend first,
Right.
but like, and
You asked me
also,
to come on Cup of Joe when you started it, and I said no.
I know
I, didn't-
why.
because
I
I didn't think I was
did.
successful enough.
No, but you see, that's something people say. And I've got to be careful saying this, because we are booked out through midsummer. So
Hmm.
I not that I would discourage emails saying, "Can I come on Cup of Joe?" But I just like
Right.
I've had to close the waiting list because I've got too many people on it and too many calls, um, and I'm behind. But the weird thing is, quite often, a couple of things happen. I've reached out to people and asked, you should be on Cup of Joe. I won't ever do that unless I see something. Something will trigger in my head, and I'll think, so many questions I could ask you, which is what
Hmm.
happened when I asked you. And but they're thinking, who am I compared to all the other people? Where am I in the hierarchy, and do I deserve a place?
Yeah.
And my point is, there is no place. We're all equally, we all have as much to give at the table, every single one of us. So it's nothing to do with a place. I'm not interested in a place. I'm interested in all our collective wisdom informing each other, so we can feed off each other's energy and all of us become stronger. But the other thing, then, people will say they'll come on Cup of Joe, and then I'll get a message sometimes right beforehand. I don't think I can do it. Because they build up in their mind
Right.
what they have to show up as. And if I could give any gift to anyone, and you're so relaxed, I can see that you've got it now. But and I know it's hard when you're new, but it's something I learned on these calls. I cared so much. I got on these calls and I spent a month going, am I cross-eyed? Like literally posting snapshots of me on the Joe calls to people going, I'm cross-eyed. When did that happen? Is something wrong with my face? Why is my face crooked? How do I have a lazy eye? And I was like freaking out. And now I'll show up anywhere because I'm me. Whoever I am is okay. That's good enough. Whoever you are
Right.
is good enough. I don't care what we all feel we have to show a checklist of what we've done to earn our place.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's ridiculous because we all loved you the first time I asked you to come on Cup of Joe. You already had your place.
Well, I think I was still doing it part-time then, or I had just gone full-time. I don't remember, but it was some reason in the back of my mind. I thought, and then I see you have Scott Brick and every other guy. I'm like, oh, no, there's no way.
Yeah,
I'm
people
not
do that.
ready
And it's
for
weird. And it's weird. I'm not even going to bring up Melissa, but
that. Yeah.
I've been trying to get her back on for ages. But the thing is, I remember before you went full time, you would always say things like, well, I'm only doing this part time. And nobody cared. You were a narrator. You know what I mean? When I first started, I got the stupidest like survival jobs, like because I thought I had to, because I thought I was going to die if somebody wasn't paying me an income. And Anna was like, you literally make a third of the money you make narrating an audiobook and you're crying because you don't have enough time. Why are you going out to these stupid jobs?
Yeah.
It takes a while for our brain, don't you think, to
Mhm.
catch up with who we are.
Well, and it's also society. We're told we're supposed to have a 9 to 5 job. We're supposed to have a job that we go
Yeah.
to every day and work at and work for someone and be productive in society. And and it feels like I'm sitting in this real room reading, how am I productive in society? Um, but we are. I mean, we're giving, while other people are working at those jobs, they're listening to the stuff that we produced. So,
We are changing people's souls and lighting up the dark parts of their lives.
mhm.
That's not that I have a romantic image of it, but I have a big question for you. I don't want to forget this or let you off the
Okay.
hook because nobody gets off the hook for this one.
Okay.
For the people that are going to be watching this video in the next 60 years, if they took anything away from this call, if you wanted to give them any message that's like matters to you that you would want them to remember, what would it be?
Hmm. Wow. Um, be kind to each other and give peace a chance. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's nothing else I can think of. Um, I don't, I've often struggled with, I've never understood uh, man's hatred of another man. I can't fathom why someone would hate someone so much to do harm to them. It's just not I'm just not capable of understanding that. And that's just me. I don't know. It's not like I had any kind of special upbringing or anything. That's just the way my brain works and the way I think. I guess I was called Spock at my radio job because I'm pretty logical for a lot of things. And logically, that just does not make sense to me why you would want to harm someone else for doing some silly thing sometimes, a lot of times, and we see that all the time with a lot of shootings and especially with the kids, with the young kids. He stepped on my shoe, so I had to shoot him. What? Really? I just don't get all that. I don't know. Maybe I'm old school. Maybe I was born in the wrong century. I should have been a medieval knight or something. I don't know, but I just don't understand that.
But you lead with kindness. That's what we said at the beginning of. I mean, that the guy that ran me over with his bicycle 2 weeks ago, and he rode off laughing. But and people are like, "Did you report him? Did you?" I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him. But this is the crucial thing. I literally can't even remember what he looked like. It was so fast. And in my
Mhm.
head, he's just sick. He's just sick. That's as bad as if somebody has like a disability or something. There's something wrong. It's nothing to do with me, wrong place, wrong time, but the kindness of the people that help, that
Yeah,
are there. The it's like what Mr. Rogers says, look for the helper. You're one of the helpers.
try to be. I grew up on Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
see,
that's
he
what I got.
obviously it stuck. Yeah, I like that. And I just think, uh, I hope now that you've been here doing this for like 100 years, I hope it's sunk in, though, the place that you have in all of the rest of our hearts, because you've been there for us since you started. So many little moments and little things you've said at just the right time. And those things make a big difference. Who you are, and like the whole, it's the opposite of what I said about the people that reach out and they just want you to introduce me to a publisher. I barely know you, but let's just make friends so you like me. And then, you know, you're the opposite. You're just always there in the sidelines, but you're always paying attention and being kind to people. And if we could all do that, I think a lot of us do, but
Hmm.
I just think I wish you realized how much of an impact you have with your
Well,
fellow narrators.
I appreciate that. I don't think so, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, but
I'll
just
take
take
your
my
word.
word for it. Thank you
Take your
so
word for
much
it.
for joining us, Todd. This has meant everything. I'm glad we finally got you here. And um, you guys, the videos are, I'm a little bit behind, an understatement, but we will have this wonderful call up in at least a month, hopefully sooner if I catch up. It's been wonderful. I wish
Thank
you
you
all
so
the
much.
best.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Thanks for joining. Mwah!